Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Franco here, and I'm actually recording this video for the second time. I recorded the entire thing, and then I realized I was capturing the microphone through my iPad as well, so it was um, double like audio sync, and it was pretty bad. So this is my second try recording this video, but I wanted to talk about the 5 stages of a new attack strategy in Clash of Clans. So the first thing that happens when you try to do a new attack strategy is, I guess, like step zero technically, but for step one, I'll call it like why you're starting the new attack strategy. So the reasons you might want to start a new attack strategy in this game is maybe just like the old attack strategy you were doing just is getting weaker, because as the game goes on, like one of the first attack strategies you do in the game is like a giant healer attack strategy, but obviously at the later town halls that isn't viable anymore. So at a certain point you do want to start changing up your attack strategies for, I mean, just because it's weak. It's simple as that. And then also another reason, which is kind of what I did, was I started upgrading my queen, so I couldn't do queen walk anymore. So another reason is that you just have a hero upgrading that's crucial to the attack strategy, because there's queen walk, warden walk, and you'd be using maybe the king for a funnel, so you need to change up the strategy. I don't know if the royal champion really matters that much for it, but and then like one of the other ones is maybe just the attack strategy you're doing is just getting boring, and like that's perfectly fair. Just you want to do a different attack strategy in the game because you want to do something new. You just keep doing the same attack every single day, every single time you log on, and could be mindless sometimes. But yeah, and maybe like with upgrading, maybe you're upgrading a barracks or something, and you want to train a troop that doesn't take as long to train, and whatever the reason is, you just want to try a new attack strategy. And that's what happened for me here. So like I said, I was doing Queen Walk, and then I decided to start this new attack strategy, which involved, as you just saw in the last replay, earthquake spells and lightning spells. So what you have to do, and this is step two now, is testing out the strategy. So what you do is you try to copy an army composition of somebody that um, already does the strategy that you, because you have a rough idea of what you want to do. So you have your old strategy, and then the new strategy is roughly like different troops. So you've probably seen that combination somewhere else, and you copy them. And when you test it out, what you do is you just test it out in multiplayer battles. Maybe copy the exact layout that someone else had, or maybe you're just like, hey, I want to start using dragons. Let me just figure out what works and what doesn't. So in this testing phase, you usually most every composition ends in like failures. Like it's not nearly as strong as your old strategy, and this is where you really start to doubt if you should just go back to the old strategy. And me personally, I've tried to go to do dragon strategies a lot of the time, and I said 5 stages of a new attack strategy. Usually every single time it dies in stage two here. Usually at stage two you scrap it, and you don't really keep moving on. But if you're lucky, then what happens is you can go to stage three, which I said in my notes here, I wrote, oh shit, a 3-star. So what happened with this attack strategy is I was just doing it, messing with the different lightning, earthquake, and then I finally did a combination, just all lightning and earthquake, and I got a 3-star on a base that I was really not expecting to get a 3-star on at all. And I was like, whoa, like this actually has some potential. So when you finally, the third stage is when when it finally starts to come together and you actually see the potential in the attack strategy, and that you can actually start using it in your normal attacks. And so then what happens after you start using it in your normal attacks and you start to see the potential is you start tweaking it. This entire process, you constantly tweak the spells and composition. Like for me, for example, I started with all dragons, and then I started with some dragons and some balloons, and then some dragons with dragon riders. And you could really look up tutorials on YouTube and stuff for this, but a lot of the time it kind of is like specific to your town hall levels, specific to your hero levels, specific to your troop levels. There's a lot of different things that you have to consider here. So everybody kind of has to make their own composition, because I'm a Town Hall 14, for example, and I attack mostly Town Hall 15s because I'm in Legend League and everybody's max Town Hall 15. So the pros maybe use like 2 earthquakes and 8 lightning, but I have to use 9 lightning because mine doesn't kill an eagle artillery with that amount of strikes or something like that. So you really have to mess around with what level you are in the game and what spells and what troop combinations, because maybe somebody uses more dragon riders than dragons that I use, etc., etc. You got to just figure out all the stuff, even like pet combinations for the heroes, depending on the strategy. Strategies are ever evolving, and then the fourth stage in this trying a new attack strategy is trying it out in war. So the difference between regular attacks and war is regular attacks I really think just kind of sits in like the second and third phase of testing it out and seeing the potential of it. But when you test it in war, you're kind of using it to plan out how you're going to attack the base. So if you like don't really know what you're doing, and you just kind of like drop random stuff, like war kind of exposes it because it always has the clan castle, it always has all the heroes up, all the defenses are up, and it really exposes that if you planned out your attacks, it shows, because then you do significantly better in war attacks than you do in regular attacks. So yeah, for example, like this strategy, like I think it works extremely well when you start to pair it with war, because then you can plan out the exact amount of lightning and earthquake that you use. Yeah, so in these next replays I'll show some war ones here, but yeah, it's been working really well in war, and that brings me to the final step in trying new attack strategy. So when you work it into war, then what happens is you start to play with it and you realize what type of bases it works better against. So the whole fundamental of this game is that one attack strategy doesn't beat every base. I mean, there's been times in Clash of Clans history where one attack strategy does beat every base, but then that usually is like too game breaking, and if something like that, then the developers will change a troop and nerf it or make it worse and fix the game. But the whole fundamental is that every attack strategy has its weaknesses and strengths against certain bases. A good example is like E-Drags, because they chain from building to building. So if there's just as simple as a base that's super spread out, E-Drags will be essentially like terrible. But maybe dragons would be significantly better at that type of base. So each different attack strategy kind of like has its own base at its favor, and sometimes it's not that simple that like you can just tell the bases. Sometimes it's like more of like a feel thing. Like, I don't really know what it is, but I think like dragons will work better here than E-Drags. And this is the fifth and final stage of the trying new attack strategies, that you actually start to get the feel for the attack strategy. And like for like a good example is like I always do air attacks, and if I were to do ground attacks, I just like don't have a feel and I have no idea what's going on. Like I drop the troops and they just kind of like sit there and I'm like, oh shit, that's gonna be like a 1-star at most, and then they just keep going and it's like a 3-star. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. And then sometimes I have such a powerful start, I get right to the town hall and then it dies early. I'm like, wow, that's not a 3-star. But with air attacks, I really have a feel. So this is when you start to really get a feel for how the attack strategy works, and it is the last part, because then you have a feel for how the strategy works, and essentially it's just as good as your primary attack strategy that you started before you left this before you started this new strategy. And this is where I guess the next step after this, which technically isn't a step because you master both attack strategies, is you can become a god in this game. And this is what pro level players use, is they analyze a base based off what attack strategies they know, and then they attack it with the best strategy you can. So me in the current war here, like I saw that both these bases were really good against dragons, but maybe in the next war I'll see and I'll be like, hey, I don't think dragons are going to work as well. I think the Queen Walk E-Drag will actually work better, and I can swap back to that attack strategy. So getting the freedom of choosing what attack strategy you want versus what bases is really what sets apart the good players and the bad players. Because good players will then learn from the strategy and keep it in their brain always. Bad players might just, oh, let me just do another attack strategy and repeat the process. But then, as you get further and further and you develop more and more attack strategies following through the cycle, then you just become a significantly more valuable member to the clan in war, for example. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right about now, is I've just stopped using the attack strategy, and it's going to feel weird going back to my old ones. I've been doing this one for a while, it's been working really well, but I know sometimes the Queen Walk E-Drag will work significantly better on other bases that the dragons, like, it kind of is like a stretch to work on. But yeah, and ultimately, like, the whole point of trying new attack strategies, like I said, like boring or something, but it is pretty fun to be more free and like able to do different attack strategies. But it is kind of like easy to get stuck in the same attack strategy over and over again because you can keep using the quick train button and you just train the same army over and over again. It's much easier than doing two different armies because then like one changes and you didn't know it and you requested the wrong clan castle troops. But yeah, I mean that's roughly the entire process, and the overall goal of it is pretty like good because you just can keep like progressing your skill in the game. And I think that's how you get significantly better as a player itself is just keep trying new attack strategies. And like you can see in like my lab, like everything or on my profile, everything's like air based. And maybe eventually when I get really good at each different air strategy, like then I'll maybe branch into ground strategies or something. But yeah, I mean that's it for the video today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.